Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes life gets heavy. You try hard, you push through, but things still fall apart. And in those moments, it is easy to blame the world, your past, your parents, your education, your luck. But what if I told you, your brain listens to everything you think? It stores every belief you repeat. It acts on every fear you feed. The truth is, success starts in your mind, not in your job, not in your circumstances, not in your family. If you want to change your life, you must first train your brain to believe it is possible. Your brain becomes what you feed it. Thoughts shape your future. Every single thought you have is like a seed. Plant fear, and you grow hesitation. Plant belief, and you grow courage. It sounds simple, but most people never stop to examine what they are feeding their minds with. Think about it. The words you say to yourself every day, the stories you repeat, the labels you accept, all of these shape your brain's reality, and your brain will follow whatever story you tell it the most. If you wake up every day thinking, "I'm not good enough," your brain starts to believe it. It will filter the world through that belief. You'll notice every failure, every rejection, every flaw, and ignore every strength, every compliment, every achievement. That's how powerful your brain is. It listens, and then it builds your actions around what it hears. You don't just think your way into failure. You train your mind to expect failure, and your life adjusts itself to fit that expectation. But the same thing works in the other direction. If you start feeding your brain with strength, with focus, with belief, it listens to that too. The change doesn't happen overnight. It's like a muscle. You don't get strong after one workout. You get strong because you keep showing up, even on the days you don't feel like it. The same rule applies to your thoughts. You have to feed your brain positive direction every single day, especially on the hard days. Here's the truth nobody talks about. Negativity is easier. Doubt is easier. Complaining is easy. The hard part is choosing strength when it's easier to be weak. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. The people who move forward aren't necessarily more talented. They're just more consistent about training their minds. They catch the negative thoughts and replace them with better ones, not perfect ones, but better. That's all it takes, better thoughts practiced often. You don't need to lie to yourself. You don't need to pretend everything is okay. You just need to remind yourself that you are capable, that you are allowed to learn, that you are allowed to try again. That one mistake doesn't make you a failure. That one bad day doesn't cancel out a lifetime of effort. These are the kind of thoughts your brain needs to hear, not fake positivity, but real, honest, hopeful thinking. And over time, something incredible happens. Your brain stops defaulting to fear. It starts leaning into courage. It starts expecting progress instead of failure, and that little shift, that daily mental workout, it starts to show up in your choices. In how you speak, in how you walk, in how you respond to life. And then, success doesn't feel like something far away. It feels like something you are already becoming from the inside out. Stop repeating negative beliefs. They build invisible prisons. Most people don't even realize they're trapped. Not by walls, not by bars, but by words they've repeated to themselves so often, they've become truth. I'm not smart enough. People like me don't succeed. I always mess things up. These are not facts. They're just phrases someone heard once, believed twice, and then repeated 1,000 times until the brain locked the door and threw away the key. You do not have to be physically restrained to be stuck. All it takes is a thought you never challenge. Negative beliefs are quiet. They don't yell, they whisper. You hear them when you want to try something new and suddenly feel scared. You hear them when someone compliments you and your first instinct is to reject it. You hear them in silence, in doubt, in hesitation. And the worst part is, your brain doesn't even argue. It just obeys. If you say, "I can't," your brain stops looking for how you could. If you say, "I don't deserve this," your brain will help you sabotage it. If you say, "It's too late for me," your brain will not waste energy trying to prove you wrong. That's the danger of unchallenged thoughts. They grow, they connect to other thoughts. "I'm bad at this," becomes "I'm a failure." "No one helped me," becomes "no one ever will." And before you know it, your entire identity becomes wrapped around an idea that was never true in the first place. That's the invisible prison. You walk through life carrying chains only you can see, and nobody on the outside will set you free. Because they don't even know you're locked in. It doesn't start with huge declarations. It starts with small, subtle shifts. Instead of saying, "I can't," you say, "I'm learning." Instead of saying, "I'm not good at this," you say, "This is new for me." Instead of saying, "They'll never pick me," you say, "Why not me?" And every time you change a sentence, your brain listens. Every time you interrupt a negative thought, you weaken the walls around you. It's slow, it's boring, it's not Instagram worthy, but it works because your brain is always listening. And eventually, it starts to repeat the new script. But here's the hard truth: your brain loves patterns, even unhealthy ones, especially familiar ones, because they're safe. So when you start breaking out of those old beliefs, it feels wrong at first. It feels uncomfortable to say something kind to yourself. It feels fake to imagine yourself doing well. That's not because you're lying. That's because your brain hasn't adjusted yet. And if you give up in that moment, the old beliefs win again. That's why awareness is everything. You must catch the thought before it takes over. You must be able to say, "Wait, where did that come from?" before you act on it. Because beliefs shape behavior, behavior shapes life, and if you never question the belief, the life never changes. You'll keep ending up in the same places, facing the same walls, wondering why things feel stuck. You are not broken. You're just programmed, and the good news is, programming can be rewritten, but you must stop feeding the same script that hurt you. You must stop repeating the words that limited you. You must stop carrying the story that someone else wrote for you. Because the day you stop repeating it is the day your mind becomes free to write something new. Replace doubt with daily positive rituals. Consistency rewires the mind. Doubt does not knock on the door and introduce itself. It slips in quietly, showing up as hesitation, second guessing, procrastination, or pretending to be realistic. And once it gets comfortable, it becomes your default setting. You wake up already doubting yourself. You hesitate before speaking. You overthink every decision. It becomes so normal that you do not even realize it is doubt. You just think it is your personality. But it is not. It is a habit, and like any habit, it can be replaced. The only way to change doubt is not by fighting it, but by building something stronger in its place. That something is a routine, a daily ritual that reminds your brain what to believe, because here is the thing, your brain learns by repetition. You tell it something once, it shrugs. You tell it 100 times, it listens. You tell it every day with action, it obeys. That is why one motivational video does not change your life, but a habit repeated daily does. Positive rituals are not complicated. You do not need hours of free time or perfect silence or expensive tools. You need small, simple, consistent acts that train your brain to expect more from you. Wake up and write down 3 things you are grateful for, not to be poetic, but to remind your brain there is still beauty here. Look in the mirror and speak to yourself with respect, not because it is magical, but because your brain needs to hear your own voice say something kind. Read 1 page from a book that inspires growth. Move your body even if it is just for 5 minutes. Breathe with intention before you check your phone. These are not just routines, they are signals, and your brain is always scanning for signals. When you do the same small thing every day, your brain starts to attach meaning to it. That morning gratitude list, It becomes proof that life is not all bad. That moment of stillness before the chaos, it becomes proof that you can create peace inside your own mind. That walk you take when you are frustrated, it becomes proof that you do not have to sit in your emotions forever. These things start small, but small does not mean weak. Small means sustainable, and sustainable means transformational. The people who seem unshakable are not fearless. They are trained. They have taught their minds to pause before reacting. They have practiced responding instead of panicking, and all of that came from repetition, from doing the mental push-ups when no one was watching, from choosing to show up for themselves before the world asked anything from them. That is what rewiring looks like. It is not flashy, it is not loud, but it is steady. If your mind is full of doubt, you are not broken. You are just under-practiced in self-belief, and practice begins with a choice. You do not wait for motivation. You do not wait for the perfect mood. You pick one thing, one ritual, and you do it every day like it is your job. Because it is, your mind is your responsibility, and if you want it to support your success, you have to train it to do that. Not with occasional inspiration, but with consistent action. Doubt gets weaker when discipline gets stronger. And discipline grows when you show up for yourself again and again, until it feels like breathing. Success begins when you take control of your inner dialogue, not when you get a promotion, not when the world finally notices you, not when everything feels perfect. It begins the moment you stop letting your thoughts run wild and start choosing what stays and what goes. Most people live their entire lives listening to a voice in their head that is not even theirs. It is a mix of old criticism, past failures, school bullies, cultural pressure, and childhood fear. And yet they believe it without question. That voice becomes the narrator of their story, and they never realize they have the power to change the script. Your inner dialogue is the most constant conversation you will ever have. You speak to yourself more than you speak to anyone else. And the tone, the words, the assumptions, they shape your confidence, your choices, your reactions. When that voice tells you you are not enough, you start to shrink, you second, guess yourself in meetings. You over-explain yourself in relationships. You say yes when you want to say no. You hold back because the voice said you would mess it up anyway. That voice does not have to scream to do damage. It just has to be consistent. The good news is, you are not stuck with that voice. You can challenge it, you can change it, you can teach it a new way to speak, but it takes awareness. You have to start noticing what you are telling yourself when things go wrong. Are you kind or cruel? Are you forgiving or punishing? When someone gives you a compliment, do you accept it or reject it internally before even smiling? These are the small signs of an inner dialogue that needs rewiring, and it starts with interrupting the automatic patterns. The next time your mind says, "I always fail," stop it. Ask, is that true every time? The answer is almost always no. The next time your thoughts go to, "I am not good at this," shift it to, "I am still learning this." These are not tricks. They are mental corrections. You are not lying to yourself. You are breaking the loop. You are choosing to speak in a way that moves you forward instead of keeping you stuck. Control over your inner dialogue is not about becoming positive all the time. It is about becoming intentional. It is about deciding that you will not let a bad mood write your whole day. It is about refusing to let the version of you from 5 years ago dictate what today looks like. You are allowed to speak to yourself with patience. You are allowed to give yourself the same encouragement you give your friends. That is not arrogance. That is mental responsibility. Over time, your brain adjusts. It starts expecting gentler language. It becomes less sensitive to failure, more open to growth, less reactive to criticism, more trusting in your own process. And that is when confidence starts to grow, not as a loud performance, but as a quiet understanding that you can handle what comes your way. It is not about believing you are the best. It is about knowing you are trying your best and treating yourself like someone worth supporting. This shift does not happen in one day. It happens in moments, a pause before a negative thought, a breath before you say something harsh to yourself, a small sentence like "I can figure this out" instead of "I am so dumb." These are the tools. This is the work. Not glamorous, not easy, but powerful, because when you take control of your inner dialogue, you stop being your own enemy. You stop playing against yourself, and you finally give yourself the chance to succeed without the weight of your own voice pulling you down. Use failures as mental strength training, not identity. Failure is uncomfortable, and that is why most people avoid it. They build their lives around safety, routine, and predictable choices, not because they lack talent, but because they are terrified of being seen falling short. Somewhere along the way, they were taught that failure is shameful, that it is a label, not an experience. And once you start seeing it as a label, it becomes your identity. "I failed" turns into "I am a failure," and those words are heavy. They sit inside your mind and echo every time you want to try again. But failure is not a name tag. It is a weight, and like any weight, it is meant to be lifted, not worn. The people who grow are the ones who learn to lift that weight, again and again, even when it hurts. They do not let failure define them, they let it refine them. That is the difference between those who stay stuck and those who rise. The ones who rise do not pretend failure did not happen. They just refuse to let it be the final chapter. When you fail at something, your brain tries to protect you. It tells you to back off, avoid the risk, don't embarrass yourself again. And if you listen to that voice without questioning it, you stop, you pull back, you hesitate the next time you're given a chance. You lower your standards not because you want to, but because you're afraid of the emotional cost. And slowly your life gets smaller, not because you failed, but because you never tried again. The truth is, failure is data. It gives you information. What didn't work, what needs adjustment, what boundaries were crossed, what skills were missing. But the emotional part of the brain does not like data. It likes stories, and so it tells you the story that you're not meant for this, that you don't have what it takes, that you're too late, too slow, too weak, and your job is to interrupt that story. Your job is to remind yourself that pain is not proof that you're doing it wrong. Sometimes it's proof that you're getting stronger. People forget that mental strength is not built in comfort. It's built in failure, in awkwardness, in rejection, in disappointment. The mind does not grow when everything goes according to plan. It grows when it has to recover, recalibrate, and re-engage. Think of the people you admire not because they succeeded easily, but because they kept going when it made no sense to. That's the muscle, that's the training, not pretending to be fearless, but choosing to move forward while carrying the fear anyway. The next time you fail, pause, feel it, let it sting. Then ask yourself, what did I learn? Not as a cliché, but as a real question. What changed in your understanding? What do you now know that you didn't before? Because every failure adds something to your toolbox, even if it's just learning how to get back up faster. The people who bounce back are not emotionally numb. They're just trained. They know how to take the hit, breathe through it, and step forward with a new strategy. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be persistent. You are not supposed to get it right the first time. You are supposed to keep adjusting, keep strengthening, keep becoming, and failure is part of that process. It does not need to be hidden. It needs to be honored, because the person who failed and stood up again is stronger than the person who never tried. Your story gets deeper, richer, more honest every time you choose growth over shame. Your environment matters. Surround yourself with growth. People like to think they are independent thinkers, untouched by what surrounds them, immune to influence. But the truth is, no matter how strong your mindset is, your surroundings will shape you. Your brain is always listening, always absorbing, always adapting. If you live in a space filled with negativity, gossip, fear, and limitation, it will seep into your thoughts no matter how many books you read or how many affirmations you repeat. You become what you consume, and people are a part of that consumption. Look around and ask yourself, do the people near you challenge you or drain you? Do they speak with belief or defeat? Do they celebrate your progress or question your ambition? Because if you are constantly surrounded by small thinking, it is only a matter of time before you start shrinking your dreams to fit the room. Growth feels awkward in environments that are not built for it. And most people do not want to outgrow their circle, so they start self-sabotaging just to stay comfortable with the people who make them feel safe. Comfort is addictive. It tells you not to rock the boat. It tells you to stay where people already know you, where your habits are familiar, where your mindset is never questioned. But growth is not polite. It disrupts things, it changes conversations, it shifts priorities, and when you begin to grow, you start to feel the tension. The jokes that used to make you laugh suddenly feel empty. The complaints that used to bond you with others now make you uncomfortable. The late night scrolls, the mindless distractions, the drama, they lose their grip on you. That is the signal that you are ready for something more. Changing your environment is not always about cutting people off. It is about creating space for people who reflect where you are going, not just where you have been. Sometimes that means spending less time with the loud voices and more time in silence, with mentors, with books, with spaces that push you forward. It means becoming intentional about what fills your time and who fills your energy. You start asking yourself if the people around you fuel your clarity or confuse your purpose. And when the answer is no, you begin to shift, not because you are better, but because you are becoming. It is easy to stay stuck when everyone around you is stuck. It feels normal. Struggle becomes the common language. But when you place yourself in a room where people are building, creating, risking, learning something inside, you wakes up. You stop making excuses. You stop blaming your past. You start asking better questions. You start becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream, but actually moves. Because when you see it done, it becomes believable. When you hear stories of persistence, your brain rewires itself for hope. That is the power of proximity. Your brain mirrors what it sees often. It copies patterns. It echoes language. It absorbs energy. So if you want to train your brain for success, your environment cannot be random. You have to be selective, not arrogant, but protective, not distant, but discerning. You deserve to be in spaces where you are reminded of your potential, not your limits, where your ideas are not mocked but molded, where your progress is not threatening but celebrated. And yes, that may be rare, that may take time, but it is worth it. Creating a growth environment does not mean you need to be around perfect people. It means you need to be around people who are trying, who are honest, who are disciplined, who show up when it is hard, who speak truth when you need correction and belief when you feel small. Your environment will either stretch you or shrink you, support you or suffocate you. You do not have to burn bridges, but you do have to build better rooms. Discipline your mind to focus, not wander. In a world that constantly pulls your attention in 100 directions, focus has become a rare superpower. Every beep, every scroll, every message is a distraction packaged as importance. And your brain, wired to seek novelty, follows every trail it sees, even if it leads nowhere. Most people are not failing because they lack ambition. They are failing because they are too distracted to finish what they start. Their energy is scattered across too many tabs, too many thoughts, too many opinions that were never theirs to begin with. Focus is not something you wait for. It is something you create, You train your brain to stay where your feet are, to finish one thing before moving to the next, to sit with discomfort without escaping into noise. That training does not happen by accident. It happens through deliberate practice. Just like your muscles get stronger when you lift weights, your focus gets sharper when you resist the pull of distraction. But most people do not resist. They give in, then wonder why their goals still feel far away. Your mind will always wander unless you give it a reason not to. It is not lazy, it is curious. It wants stimulation. It wants the path of least resistance, and scrolling, complaining, multitasking, these are the easy paths. Discipline is what teaches your brain that easy is not always useful. Discipline is what says, we are staying here, we are doing this, even if we are bored, even if we are tired, even if no one is watching. That internal command, repeated daily, is how focus is built. Not in one big moment of motivation, but in quiet, consistent choices. Start small, pick one task, set a timer, block distractions, and just begin, not because you feel like it, but because you promised yourself you would. That is where focus begins, with a promise, with intention, with the decision that your goals are worth more than your momentary comfort. And the more you keep that promise, the more your brain learns to trust you, the more your thoughts begin to align with your actions. The more you stop negotiating with your excuses. People often think discipline is about restriction. But real discipline is freedom, the freedom to make progress, the freedom to not be controlled by every impulse, the freedom to finish what you start. Focus gives you time back. It gives you energy back. It gives you clarity in a world that thrives on confusion. When you know how to focus, you stop chasing everything. You start building something. There will always be noise. There will always be something urgent, something tempting, something easier. Your job is to decide what matters. Your job is to train your mind to say no, not just to distractions, but to the belief that you need to be everywhere, do everything, know everything. You don't, you just need to do the next right thing with full attention. One task done well is more powerful than 10 started and abandoned halfway through. 1 hour of real work is more valuable than a full day of scattered effort. The discipline to focus is not glamorous. It is repetitive, it is often uncomfortable, but it is how goals are reached, not through bursts of effort, but through hours of deliberate action. Focus is how you cut through noise. It is how you separate what is urgent from what is important. It is how you become excellent at what you do, not by doing more, but by doing what matters most with your full mind present. And once your brain learns that rhythm, it stops chasing chaos. It starts craving depth, and in depth, success lives quietly, waiting to be earned. Forgiveness is a mental detox, let go to grow. People think forgiveness is a gift for the other person, but it is not. It is a cleansing process for your own mind. When you carry resentment, bitterness, and old anger, you are not punishing the person who hurt you. You are punishing yourself every time you remember. Your brain holds onto those moments like they are still happening. The emotion repeats, the pain resurfaces, and you live inside the story long after the chapter should have ended. That kind of weight slows you down, clouds your thinking, and blocks your progress. The mind is not meant to hold grudges forever. It is meant to learn, adjust, and release, but when you refuse to forgive, your brain stays trapped in replay mode. It scans for evidence of pain. It looks for signs of betrayal. It expects disappointment, and in doing that, it limits your ability to trust, to heal, to try again. Unforgiveness becomes a filter, and everything in your life starts getting viewed through it. Relationships suffer, self-esteem fades, opportunities look risky. Not because they are, but because your mind is carrying too much emotional baggage to see clearly. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending it never happened. It means choosing not to carry it anymore. It means looking at what hurt you, acknowledging it, and deciding that it does not get to control your future. Forgiveness is not about being weak. It is about being strong enough to release what is poisoning your peace. It is mental clarity, emotional discipline, spiritual strength, and it is necessary if you want your mind to function at its highest level. Your brain cannot focus on building if it is busy defending. When you are stuck in resentment, your thoughts are defensive, not creative. You are more likely to push people away, misinterpret situations, and sabotage your own growth. You might think you are protecting yourself, but really, you are keeping yourself small. You are guarding wounds that should have been cleaned, not worshipped. Forgiveness is the mental reset that allows your brain to stop surviving and start thriving again. Forgive others, not because they always deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You deserve to stop carrying conversations in your head that happened years ago. You deserve to wake up without that heaviness. You deserve to stop reacting from old pain, and just as importantly, forgive yourself. You cannot grow if you are constantly punishing yourself for who you were. You cannot evolve if you do not believe you are allowed to begin again. The past cannot be changed, but your relationship to it can. Forgiving yourself is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Because your brain remembers your own mistakes more vividly than anyone else's. It replays the moments you wish you could undo. It highlights your flaws in high definition. But that memory is not meant to punish. It is meant to teach. You are not supposed to forget your failures. You are supposed to grow from them, and that growth is only possible if you release the shame attached to it. Create space in your mind for new thoughts by clearing out the old. That is what forgiveness is, a mental detox. It is choosing to feel lighter. It is deciding to give your energy to the future, not the past, and you do it over and over again, not because it is easy, but because it is healing. Every time you forgive, your brain learns it is safe to move forward. Every time you release a grudge, your mind frees up capacity to focus, to love, to build, to dream. That space you create by letting go becomes the soil where your next chapter can grow.